James and the Express. When James returned from the works after being mended, I put him on shunting duties at the big station for a week. This was so his new patch could be run in before he returned to work on the main line. But the other big engines thought this a great joke. It's all because they had to use a bootlace to get you out of trouble, they would tease in the shed at night. James tried to get his own back by talking about engines who got shut up in tunnels and stuck on hills and erupted like volcanoes. But they took no notice and went on joking and laughing. "You talk too much, little James," said Gordon one night when James brought up the hill. "Me?" spluttered James. "You haven't shut up all night." "A fine strong engine like me," said Gordon snootily, "has plenty to talk about. I'm the only engine who can pull the Wild Isle Express. When I'm not available, it needs 2 engines. Think of that." "And when you're not strong enough on your own," James began. "I've pulled expresses for years," Gordon pressed on, "and I never once lost my way. I seem to know the right way by instinct." Every wise engine knows that the signallers work the points to make the trains run on the right lines, but proud Gordon forgot all about that. "Wake up, James," said Gordon the next morning. "It's nearly time for the express. Run along and fetch my coaches like a good little shunter. Don't be late." Yawning and fuming, James dragged himself to the big station. He was careful not to bump the coaches, and they followed him smoothly to the platform. "What do you think of our new paint?" asked Warrington, the first-class coach. "Very smart," admired James. I wish I was taking you. I should love to pull the express and go flying along the line." Soon, with much noise and blowing of steam, Gordon backed onto the train. Several important people boarded the coaches, including myself. And as soon as Lizzie blew her whistle, Gordon started. "Look at me now," he called to James in the yard. James watched enviously as Gordon steamed smartly out of the big station, his coaches gliding after him. "Goodbye, little James," whistled Gordon. "See you this afternoon." James watched the express disappear, and then went back to work. He had just brought some trucks to the goods platform when a porter ran up. "What's the matter?" asked Charlie. "Gordon's brakes have jammed," said the porter. "We need James's help right away." James quickly set off to the rescue. He found Gordon in a runaway siding, his coaches standing still and sulkily behind him. "Good afternoon, Gordon," said James sweetly. "It is the afternoon, isn't it?" Gordon didn't answer. He just let off steam feebly. "Did you lose your way?" asked James. "He certainly did," grunted Warrington. "I did not," objected Gordon. "I was switched off the main line onto this runaway siding. I had to slam on my brakes to avoid a crash." "Good instincts," grinned James. He could hear shouting coming from within the coaches. The passengers weren't hurt, but they were cross. Lizzie had barricaded herself in her compartment as passengers piled into Joris demanding refunds. Lizzie had dropped her whistle, escaping the angry mob. I picked it up and blew it. Everyone stopped making noise and looked at me. "Another engine has come to take us away," I announced. I opened a window and called to James. "Gordon can't pull the train. We need you to do it for us, James." "Yes, sir, I'll try," beamed James. So James was coupled up, and all the passengers took their seats. "Do your best, James," I called from my window. I handed Lizzie a whistle, and she blew it. Come along," puffed James. "You're pulling us well," remarked Warrington and Joris as the express pulled away from the runaway siding. Soon we were flying along the main line. Stations and bridges flashed by. The passengers leaned out their window, waving and cheering at James, and it wasn't long before we reached the workstation. "Well done," I said to James as the passengers were thanking him. "Would you like to pull the express sometimes?" "Yes, please," answered James happily. After James had finished his work, he took Gordon to the works to have his brakes mended. He pulled the express while Gordon was away, and when Gordon came back, James would sometimes take the express to give Gordon a break. Gordon wasn't too happy to lose his title as the railway's only express engine, but James was quick to notice that whenever the other big engines teased him about bootlaces, Gordon didn't join in.